The monitors in the maternity ward beeped in a steady, rhythmic lullaby, the only comforting sound in the sterile room as Zara cradled her hours-old son. Her husband, Kang Junho, had stepped into the dimly lit hallway to take what he claimed was an urgent late-night call from his managing director. Ignoring the searing pain of her fresh C-section, Zara shuffled toward the door to ask him for iced chips. But as she cracked the heavy door open, the words she heard froze the blood in her veins. "I know, Minji. I'm just playing the part here. You and the kids are my real family. I'll be home to you soon." Welcome to K-Afro Diary Besties. Before you hear this story, ask yourself one thing. How well do you really know the person you trust the most? And if you've ever trusted the wrong person, this will hit differently. Grab your popcorn and stay tuned. Zara Osei was not a woman who missed red flags. As one of the most sought-after commercial architects in Seoul, her entire career was built on seeing structural weaknesses before the foundation was even poured. She was a striking, dark-skinned black woman with a brilliant mind, a fierce independence, and a laugh that could warm the coldest Korean winter evening. When she met Kang Junho, she believed she had found a partner whose foundation was as solid as her own. Junho was a charismatic corporate attorney at one of Seoul's most prestigious international law firms. He was the kind of man who moved effortlessly through any room, wielding his intelligence and easy confidence like a master key. They had met at a legal industry gala in Uedo, and Junho's pursuit of Zara had been nothing short of relentless. He was attentive, genuinely proud of her demanding career, endlessly supportive. He told everyone she was the sharpest person he had ever met and said it like he meant it every time. Their wedding at a historic Hanok estate in Jeonju had been covered in 2 lifestyle magazines. A striking modern couple. 2 driven people who had chosen each other in a city that rarely stood still long enough for choices to mean something. For the first 4 years, the marriage was a fortress. But the cracks began to show when they decided to expand their family. The journey to parenthood was brutal. Zara suffered 3 miscarriages in 2 years. The physical toll was immense, but the psychological weight was something else entirely. During the first 2 losses, Junho was her anchor. He held her in the sterile rooms of the fertility clinic and didn't flinch from any of it. But by the 3rd miscarriage, something shifted. His embraces began to feel like obligations. His eyes, once warm and present, started to carry a distance she couldn't name. When Zara finally fell pregnant a 4th time, she was terrified. She held her breath through the first trimester, barely whispering the news to her fiercely protective older sister, Adaeze, who lived in Mapogu and would have driven across the city at midnight for her without being asked. When they crossed the 20-week mark and learned they were having a boy, Zara finally allowed herself to breathe. She painted the nursery a soft, warm white. She bought tiny onesies. She began to let herself dream. But as Zara's belly grew, Junho's absence grew with it. He had recently been elevated to senior partner, a role that supposedly demanded constant travel to Busan. "It's the Daishin merger," he would say, hastily packing his overnight bag on a Wednesday evening. "It's a nightmare. I hate leaving you like this, especially now. But it's for our future. For the baby." Zara, exhausted by high-risk pregnancy and soaring blood pressure, accepted the excuses. She told herself that the faint trace of floral perfume on his coats came from crowded elevators. She told herself that his phone, always placed face down on the kitchen counter, was a byproduct of confidential corporate litigation. She blamed her growing unease on pregnancy hormones. During her 3rd trimester, she developed severe preeclampsia. Her blood pressure spiked to dangerous levels and she was placed on strict bed rest. For 6 weeks she lay in their apartment in Songdong-gu, staring at the ceiling while Junho spent 4 days out of 7 in Busan. "I can't walk away from a multi-billion-won litigation, Naomi." He had snapped one evening when she tearfully asked him to stay home for the weekend. It was the first time he had ever raised his voice at her. He instantly softened, crouching beside her and pressing his forehead to her hands. "Sorry. The pressure is unbearable. I'm doing this for us. I promise the moment Eli is born, I'm taking 2 months paternity leave." Just the three of us. Zara clung to that promise. She pushed down the nagging intuition that something was deeply wrong. She was a woman about to bring a life into the world. She simply didn't have the emotional space to entertain the possibility that her marriage was built on sand. She focused everything on the tiny, kicking life inside her. Eli was going to bring Junho back to her. Foundations built on sand cannot withstand a storm. And Zara's storm was about to make landfall. The birth of Eli was not the moment Zara had imagined. At 37 weeks, her blood pressure spiked to a catastrophic 185/115. Her obstetrician took one look at the monitors and ordered an immediate emergency cesarean. The hours that followed were a blur of blinding lights, rushing scrubs, and the cold sting of the spinal block. Junho arrived at Severance Hospital just as they were wheeling Zara into the operating theater. He was in a tailored dark suit, looking wildly out of place among the frantic medical staff. As he sat beside her head in borrowed surgical scrubs, she noticed his eyes kept drifting downward. While the surgeons were working to save her life and the life of their son, Junho was texting beneath the sterile drip. When the piercing, perfect cry of her son filled the cold room, tears streamed down Zara's face. They brought the tiny boy to her cheek. He was beautiful. Dark, curly hair. Small and absolute and entirely real. She looked up at Junho expecting to see the overwhelm she felt reflected back at her. Instead he looked panicked. He gave the baby a brief, tight smile, kissed Zara's forehead and said, "He's perfect, Zara. You did wonderfully. I need to send a message to my parents." By midnight the hospital had quieted. Zara was recovering in a private suite in the maternity ward. The exhaustion in her bones was absolute. Her abdomen burned with a dull, throbbing fire and she was connected to 4 drips and blood pressure monitors. Baby Eli was swaddled in his bassinet beside her, sleeping. Junho was reclined in the vinyl chair in the corner. He had barely held his son. Every time Zara asked him to pass the baby, he did so with a stiff, awkward hesitation, as if handling something foreign and fragile that he had no instinct for. At 1:20 in the morning, his phone vibrated hard against the plastic tray table. He snatched it up instantly. "It's Director Park from the firm," he whispered, studying the screen. "Emergency issue with the Busan filings. I have to take this in the hallway so I don't wake Eli. Try to rest." He slipped out, pulling the door behind him. The latch didn't catch. A sliver of the hallway remained open. 10 minutes passed. Zara's throat was sandpaper dry. The anesthesia was wearing off. The water pitcher on her bedside table was empty. She didn't want to use the call button and bother the night nurses just for water, not when Junho was right outside. She gripped the bed rail, dragged herself upright against the burning pull of her incision, and shuffled toward the door with her forepole, intending to wave him down. She leaned her weight against the doorframe. Junho's voice drifted through the gap. Not his courtroom voice. Not his managing partner voice. Something softer. More intimate. "I know it's hard, baby." "No." Zara froze. "Minji, please don't cry." He continued, his voice wrapped in a desperate urgency she hadn't heard from him in years. "I told you it was an emergency surgery. Had to be here. If I wasn't, it would raise too many questions with her family and the divorce lawyers would have a field day with my assets." Zara stopped breathing. The antiseptic smell of the hospital seemed to vanish. The world tilted. "No, I didn't hold him." Junho's voice carried clearly down the empty corridor. "It's fine. I'm just playing the part here until she's stable enough for me to file cleanly. You know I don't want this. You and the twins are my real family. Love you. Kiss Jeon and Saiwoo for me. I'll be back in Busan by Thursday." Like always, the world didn't just tilt. Came off its axis entirely. Minji. Twins. Jeon and Saiwoo. My real family. The pieces slammed together with a sickening, violent force. Busan wasn't a corporate merger. Busan was a second life. Second family. While Zara had been suffering through miscarriages, injecting herself with hormones, lying in terror on bed rest, The man she had promised her life to had been living with another woman. He had children. Twins. He had been going home to them. A wave of nausea hit her. She pressed her hand over her mouth, her incisions screaming as her muscles contracted. She backed away from the door, her vision blurring. He didn't love her. He didn't want their son. He was here only to protect his assets in a divorce he had already decided was happening. She was a legal liability. Nothing more. Zara stumbled back to the bed. She pulled the blanket to her chin and lay completely still, shaking. Not from the cold. From the specific physical shock of a betrayal so complete it registered in the body before the mind. She looked at the bassinet. Eli was making tiny soft breathing sounds. In that moment, staring at her innocent hours-old son, the weeping wife died. And in her place, something terrifyingly calm and fiercely focused was born. Panic is loud and chaotic. Survival, true primal survival, is silent. The door opened. Junho stepped back in, sliding his phone into his pocket. He ran a hand through his hair and exhaled heavily. "Director Park is going to put me in an early grave," he muttered, dropping into the recliner. He glanced at Zara, who had her eyes half closed, feigning the slow drift of medication. "You look pale. Did you need something?" "Just the pain medication," Zara whispered. Her voice was steadier than it had any right to be. She could not look at him directly. She did, she would scream. "Rest," he said. He checked his watch, the one she had bought him for their 3rd anniversary. "Listen, it's almost 2. This chair is killing my back. I'm going to head home, shower, get a few hours of real sleep, and bring you fresh clothes in the morning. That okay?" He couldn't stay in the same room as his newborn son for a single night. "That's fine," Zara said. "Oh." He kissed her forehead. His lips felt like something poisonous. "Love you. Call if there's an emergency." He didn't look at the bassinet as he walked out. The second the door clicked shut, Zara threw the blanket off. The blinding pain in her abdomen was still there, but it was completely masked now by a surge of adrenaline and the cold, precise focus of a mind that had spent 15 years building structures that didn't fail under pressure. Junho was a powerful attorney. If she confronted him, he would gaslight her, manipulate the situation, control the narrative. He had a whole other family, a woman who clearly knew about Zara and had decided to accept the arrangement. He was calculating and ruthless. She was vulnerable, recovering from major surgery, medicated, alone. She could not stay here. She grabbed her phone and called Adaeze. Adaeze was a defense attorney who had never once in her life been described as relaxed. She answered on the second ring, her voice thick with sleep. "Zara, is the baby all right?" "Ada," Zara said, her voice low and controlled. "Listen to me carefully. Don't ask questions yet. Get in your car. Come to the delivery loading entrance at the back of Severance. Text me when you are 2 minutes away. Zara, you just had major abdominal surgery. Ada, if you love me, do exactly what I am telling you right now. Junho has another family in Busan. He is planning to blindside me with a divorce. I am leaving tonight." Stunned silence. Then the sound of sheets moving and keys. "I'm leaving right now. Share your location with me." Zara hung up. She swung her legs over the side of the bed. She removed the blood pressure cuff. She peeled the heart monitor stickers from her chest. The 4 was trickier. She clamped the line, carefully slid the needle from her vein, pressed a cotton ball hard until it clotted. She dressed in the clothes she had worn to the hospital. Bending to pull up her trousers sent a shockwave of white-hot agony through her core, but she bit down and made no sound. She moved to the bassinet. Eli was still sleeping. She lifted him, wrapped him in 2 hospital blankets, and placed him gently in the portable car seat in the corner of the room. She checked her bag for her wallet, ID, and phone. Then she looked at her left hand. The 3-carat solitaire and the platinum band she had worn for 5 years sparkled under the harsh fluorescent light. A symbol of something that had never been what she was told it was. Zara slid the rings off. She walked to the tray table and placed them exactly in the center of it. Then she picked up the car seat and walked out. The night shift was quiet. She bypassed the main nurse's station, taking the service elevator she had noted earlier, her architectural brain mapping the building on instinct. As she reached the ground floor corridor leading toward the loading dock, a young night nurse stepped out of a supply room and stopped at the sight of her. You can't be out of bed. Have you been discharged? I need to check your wristband. Zara, stop. She drew herself to her full height, her eyes locking onto the young woman with a calm that left no room for argument. My name is Zara Osei Kang, she said, her voice quiet and absolute. I am leaving against medical advice. I am fully aware of the risks. I will contact administration in the morning to complete the paperwork. If you attempt to stop me or to touch me or my son, I will have you reported for false imprisonment. Step aside. The nurse stepped back. Zara pushed through the heavy double doors. The cold Seoul night hit her like a wall. She walked down the concrete ramp. At the bottom, headlights flashed. Adaeze's black SUV idled in the shadows. Adaeze threw the passenger door open, leaping out to take the car seat from Zara's trembling hands. Get in, she urged, eyes wide and furious, securing Eli in the back seat. Get in right now. Zara got in. Adaeze slammed the car into drive and pulled away. Zara looked out the window at the city moving past. She was bleeding. She was broken. Her entire life had just been incinerated in the hallway of a hospital maternity ward. But from the back seat she could hear the soft, even breathing of her son. And she knew one thing with absolute architectural certainty. Kang Junho thought he was the one holding the plans. He had no idea the demolition had already begun. The safe house was not a cabin somewhere remote. It was a clean steel and glass penthouse in Mapogu belonging to one of Adaeze's clients, a tech executive currently on a 12-month posting in Singapore. It was accessible only by private elevator with biometric entry, and entirely outside Junho's professional network. When Adaeze got Zara through the door, the adrenaline that had carried her out of the hospital evaporated all at once. What remained was pure, blinding pain. The 30-minute drive had jostled her fresh incision, and the gray sweatpants she had changed into carried a blooming, alarming patch of red. I need a doctor, Ada, Zara said, collapsing onto the sofa with Eli's car seat clutched against her chest. Not a hospital. He'll track the insurance. Adaeze was already dialing. I'm calling Kwon Hyunjae. He's an ER physician who owes me from a malpractice case I made disappear 18 months ago. He knows how to be discreet. Dr. Kwon arrived within 40 minutes, asked nothing, administered a local anesthetic, restapled the section of Zara's incision that had torn, started her on 4 antibiotics and pain management, checked Eli's vitals, and left behind 2 weeks of medical supplies and a separate phone. By sunrise the rain had stopped over Seoul. Pale gray morning light came through the penthouse windows. Zara was propped up in the bedroom, Eli sleeping on her chest, her mind working with a sharpness that the medication could not touch. She was an architect. Her entire life was dedicated to understanding how structures held together and, more precisely, how to take them apart. Across the city at 7:15, Kang Junho walked into the maternity suite at Severance carrying a coffee and a bag of clothes. He found the bed stripped, the monitors dark, and sitting precisely in the center of the rolling tray table, under the harsh fluorescent light, with a solitaire diamond and the platinum wedding band he had placed on her finger 5 years ago. Junho stood completely still. The coffee slipped from his fingers and hit the floor. He didn't feel the terror of a husband afraid for his wife's safety. He felt the cold, sickening dread of a man whose meticulously constructed architecture had just caught fire. He called his mentor immediately. Nam Chulsu, the senior managing partner of the firm. It's Junho. I have a catastrophic situation. Zara is gone. She took the baby. What do you mean gone? She just had a C-section. She left against medical advice. Her rings are here. Also, she heard me on the phone last night. She heard me talking to Minji. Long damning silence. You arrogant fool, Chulsu finally said. I told you to end the Busan situation before the child was born. If she files in Seoul family court and exposes your double life, she takes half of everything. Your equity in the firm. The apartment in Songdong. Every investment portfolio you hold. No. What's the play? Control the narrative before she does. Chalsa's voice turned cold and methodical. She is a high-risk postpartum mother who just had emergency surgery. She left her newborn without medical clearance in the middle of the night. You are the terrified, devoted father. Call the police. File a missing persons report. Tell them she is exhibiting signs of severe postpartum psychosis. Paint her as mentally unstable. Get an emergency ex parte custody order filed today. Freeze her accounts so she cannot retain a serious attorney. Junho nodded, a desperate, ugly relief washing over him. Postpartum psychosis, he repeated. But she's a danger to herself and to my son. He ended the call and dialed emergency services, forcing his voice to crack. Back in the Mapogu penthouse, Adaeze sat at the glass dining table surrounded by 2 laptops and a legal pad, working. He's moving fast, Zara, Adaeze said from the doorway, carrying a mug of tea. My contact at the Seoul family court just flagged an emergency filing. Junho is petitioning for full temporary custody of Eli and a psychiatric evaluation for you. He filed a police report claiming you had a psychotic break and fled the hospital with his child. Zara didn't flinch. She stroked Eli's dark hair, her expression hardening into something clear and cold. Of course he did. He's a litigator. When the facts are against you, you attack the witness. I've already spoken to the detective assigned to the welfare check, Adaeze said, sitting on the edge of the bed. I've informed them I'm your legal counsel, that you are mentally sound, recovering under private medical care, and that you fled due to severe emotional abuse and fear for your safety. They won't move on you. It's a civil matter now. But Junho's team froze all the joint accounts this morning. How much? Roughly 480 million won in liquid assets. Adaeze paused. But that's not the worst part, Zara. I've been going through his financial records. For the last 3 years, he has been quietly funneling his annual bonuses into a holding entity called Hongang Asset Partners. Zara's breath caught. 3 years. Her voice was quiet and very controlled. Find everything. Hire the best forensic accountant in this city. I want to know that woman's full name, the names of those children, everything he bought them, and every date. I am not going to sit in a courtroom and simply defend myself against his custody petition. I am going to dismantle him completely. The man Adaeze called was a former financial supervisory service investigator named Park Junho, who had traded his government position for a career as the most effective private investigator in Seoul. He was quiet, methodical, and almost frightening in his thoroughness. He arrived at the penthouse 48 hours later with a thick folder, which he laid on the glass dining table without ceremony. Zara, moving carefully and wincing with each step, sat across from him. Adaeze stood behind her, arms crossed. Your husband is a careless man who has convinced himself he is a careful one, Park Junho said, opening the folder. He slid a high-resolution photograph across the table. It showed a Korean woman in her early 30s loading groceries into a white SUV in front of a residential building in Busan's Haeundae district. Her name is Yoo Min-ji, 31 years old. Former junior associate at Junho's previous firm in Busan. She relocated to Haeundae 4 years ago. She currently operates a private interior styling consultancy fully funded through Hongang Asset Partners. Zara looked at the woman's face. She seemed entirely ordinary, quietly pretty, unremarkable. Park Junho placed 2 more photographs on the table. They were taken at a park near the waterfront. Junho was pushing 2 small children, a boy and a girl, on a set of swings. His face was open and lit up with a real, unburdened joy that Zara had not seen directed at her in years. The twins, Jeon and Saiwoo, Park Junho said quietly. They turned 3 last month. The air left the room. Zara gripped the edge of the glass table. 3 years old. She closed her eyes as the timeline assembled itself. To have 3-year-old twins, Minji would have fallen pregnant nearly 4 years ago. That was precisely when Zara had suffered her very first miscarriage. While she had been bleeding on a bathroom floor, asking a god she was not certain was listening why this kept happening to her. Junho had already been making another family. While he sat beside her in the fertility clinic, holding her hands and looking devastated, he was going home to a woman who was already carrying his children. He had watched her endure 3 miscarriages, bed rest, and daily hormone injections with a healthy family waiting for him in Busan. He has been with her since our first year of marriage, Zara said softly. One tear escaped before she pressed it away. Park Junseo's voice turned deliberately professional. Gets worse. I looked into the property records for the Houndy apartment building. It's a newly constructed residential property valued at 2 billion won. Yu Minji is listed as the primary tenant, but the registered owner is Hongang Asset Partners. Adaeze's attorney instincts sharpened immediately. If he used marital funds to purchase that property, Zara is entitled to half its value in the settlement. He didn't use his bonus funds to buy it, Park Junseo said. His bonuses covered Minji's living expenses and the consultancy overheads. To purchase the property, he took out a substantial secured loan. Zara frowned. Against what collateral? The Songdong apartment. He would have needed my co-signature. He didn't use the apartment. Park Junseo looked directly at her. He used your architectural firm. Specifically, the commercial building in Mapo where your studio occupies the 4th floor. He registered the loan against your business property. Adaeze's breath went sharp. That's not possible. Zara is the sole registered owner of the LLC that holds that building. Junho has no legal standing to borrow against it. He does if he forged her signature on the loan application and used a notary employed by his firm to authenticate it. Park Junseo slid a bank document across the table. I obtained the original loan application. The signature reads Zara Osei, but it is a forgery. He stole approximately 2 billion won in equity from your professional legacy to purchase a home for his other family. Silence. Not the quiet kind. The suffocating, wall-pressing kind. Junho hadn't merely been unfaithful. He hadn't merely been planning a divorce. He had committed federal bank fraud, wire fraud, and felony forgery, using the building Zara had spent 15 years working to own as his personal instrument of theft. And if her firm ever encountered financial difficulty and couldn't service the loan, the bank would foreclose, and she would lose her company. He had rigged her foundation with explosives, set to detonate whenever he decided he no longer needed her. I will call the prosecutor's office tonight, Adaeze said, her voice vibrating with a controlled, righteous fury. This is not family court anymore. This is federal. We can have him in custody by midnight. Well, Zara's voice was quiet, but it settled the room the way a gavel does. She looked up from the forged documents. The devastation that had clouded her eyes for 2 days was gone. In its place was the cold, brilliant clarity of an architect who had just located the load-bearing wall. Zara, he committed felony crimes against you. If we present this tomorrow at the emergency custody hearing, he loses everything. If we arrest him tonight, Zara said. His firm's crisis team spins it as a marital misunderstanding. He posts bail. He drags the divorce through every court in the country for years. He uses the twins as a sympathy card to every judge he faces. She shook her head slowly. I don't want him to simply go to prison, Ada. I want him to lose everything he loves first. Exactly the way he designed for me. She looked at Park Junseo. Does Minji know he is legally married to me? Based on her communications, yes. She refers to him as her future husband, but she frequently complains to her friends about his impossible estranged wife who refuses to cooperate with the divorce. He has been telling her for 3 years that you and he are separated and that you are deliberately obstructing the asset division. Zara nodded slowly. A structural plan was forming in her mind. The precise, logical architecture of a controlled demolition. Junho thrives on control, she said. He thinks he has me backed into a corner with this custody hearing. He thinks I'm going to walk in tomorrow weeping and hysterical, trying to defend my sanity. He thinks he's playing 3-dimensional chess while I'm still trying to find the board. She stood carefully, pressing one hand to her abdomen, and walked to the bassinet where Eli was sleeping. She rested her palm on his chest and felt the small, steady rise and fall. Maya, she said, using her sister's old nickname for the first time since this began. Draft my response to the custody petition. Do not mention the forgery. Do not mention Minji. I will agree to his psychological evaluation. I will accept supervised visitation arrangements. We are going to perform the role of the broken, compliant wife. Adaeze frowned. You're giving him ground. Zara turned from the bassinet and looked at the Seoul skyline through the floor-to-ceiling windows. A structural collapse is always most complete, she said quietly, when you let the building reach its full height before you remove the main support column. Let him believe he has won the first round. While he's celebrating, I'm going to Busan. The Seoul family court was a tower of gray stone and glass in Seoul, a place where lives were routinely divided by judicial order. On a rainy Thursday morning, 5 days after she had walked out of Severance Hospital, Zara Osei was wheeled through the courtroom doors. She looked precisely the part Junho's legal team had written for her. Oversized charcoal cardigan, no makeup, hands folded in her lap, eyes directed at the floor. The wheelchair, insisted upon by Dr. Kwon, completed the portrait of a fragile, unraveled woman. Across the aisle, Junho sat at the petitioner's table flanked by his attorney, Oh Sang-min, one of the most aggressive family law practitioners in Seoul. Junho wore a charcoal suit and the expression of a deeply concerned, heartbroken father. When Zara was wheeled in, he offered her a look of such practiced pity that it made her stomach turn. Judge Kim, a white-haired veteran of family court, called the hearing to order. Your Honor, Oh Sang-min began, standing. We are here because the respondent suffered a severe psychological break. 5 days ago, hours after a traumatic emergency C-section, she disconnected her medical equipment, left her wedding rings on a tray table, and fled the hospital with the petitioner's newborn son against medical advice. We are seeking emergency temporary custody and an immediate psychological evaluation. Judge Kim looked at Adaeze. Counselor, does your client have a response to the allegation of endangering a newborn? Adaeze kept her voice deliberately subdued, stripped of its usual courtroom fire. Your Honor, my client underwent a major physical and psychological trauma. She was disoriented from anesthesia and distressed by her recovery. She called me, her sister, and I transported her to a secure private location where she has been under 24-hour medical supervision. Baby Eli is perfectly healthy. That does not address the erratic and dangerous conduct, Your Honor, Oh Sang-min said smoothly. Mr. Kang is terrified for his son. We ask that the child be transferred to the petitioner's care immediately. Adaeze turned to Zara and staged a brief, urgent whispered consultation. Zara gave a slow, defeated nod. Your Honor, given the physical demands of my client's recovery, she acknowledges she cannot care for the infant alone at this time. However, she is deeply distressed by the prospect of separation from her son. We propose that temporary physical custody be granted to me, the maternal aunt, with unlimited supervised visitation for Mr. Kang at my home. Mrs. Kang will submit to the psychiatric evaluation and an outpatient recovery program. David's eyes flared with a gleam of victory. He leaned to his attorney, who nodded. We accept, Your Honor, provided that Mrs. Kang's finances remain frozen to prevent another flight risk. So ordered, Judge Kim said, and brought down his gavel. But Adaeze was not finished. One procedural matter, Your Honor. Since the marital assets are frozen per the petitioner's request, I'd like to enter Mr. Kang's sworn asset declaration into the court record today so that my client's medical expenses can be properly allocated going forward. She slid a document across the table. It was the standard financial disclosure form Junho had completed the previous day. Oh Sang-min waved a dismissive hand. Standard procedure, Your Honor. Mr. Kang, Adaeze said, looking at Junho directly for the first time. You are under oath. Do you swear that this document represents the entirety of your financial assets, properties and trusts? Junho smiled. He had buried Hongang Asset Partners behind 3 shell entities and a registered agent in Incheon. He was certain it was untraceable. "I do," he said clearly for the court reporter. "Thank you," Adaeze said quietly. She walked back to the wheelchair and gripped the handles. As she turned Zara toward the doors, Zara looked up and found Junho's eyes. Just for a fraction of a second the performance fell away. And Junho saw something in his wife's face that was not grief, not fear, not the collapse he had been counting on. He saw the expression of an architect who had just watched a man sign his own demolition order. But the courtroom door swung shut and he told himself he was imagining things. He pulled out his phone and sent a message to Busan. The evaluation was theater. The judge bought everything. Seoul is handled. Coming to you and the kids tomorrow night. He had no idea that by saying "I do" under oath, he hadn't only lied to his wife a second time. He had committed felony perjury before a family court judge, permanently locking his financial fraud into the public record. The support columns had just been cut. It was time to push the building over. 2 days later, the rain cleared in Busan and bright winter sun came off the water in the Haeundae district. The address was a stylish boutique interior consultancy on a quiet street 1 block from the beach. Tasteful sign by the door. White curtains in the window. The kind of business that had been funded into existence rather than built from the ground up. The glass door opened and Zara walked in. She was not the woman from the wheelchair. She wore a sharply tailored navy coat, her hair immaculate, her posture the specific, commanding ease of a woman who had spent 15 years walking into rooms and owning them. Park Junho came in behind her and turned the sign to closed. Yu Minji looked up from a mood board she had been arranging. She was smaller than Zara had expected. Pretty and tired-looking, with the eyes of someone who had been waiting a long time for something they were starting to suspect was not coming. Her smile faded when she saw the door locked. It disappeared entirely when she recognized Zara from the photographs David had shown her. Yu Minji said, taking a step back. "What are you doing here? David told me you were dangerous. If you don't leave, I am calling the police right now." "Put the phone down," Zara said. Her voice carried no anger. Just the calm authority of someone who has already decided how a room ends. "If you call the police, you will be leaving here in handcuffs, and your children will be placed in emergency care." Minji's hand hovered over her phone. "You're exactly what he said you were. You refused to sign the divorce papers. He told me you were trying to take everything from him." Zara walked to the consultancy's front desk. She reached into her bag and opened a leather portfolio. She laid the first document flat on the surface. "This is a certified copy of my marriage certificate to Kang Junho." She placed a second document beside it. "These are our joint tax returns for the past 4 years. We are not separated. We have never been separated. We were actively trying to conceive the entire time he was here with you." Minji stared at the documents. Her face went the color of old paper. "Well, he told me he moved out of your home 3 years ago. He told me the marriage was over. He lied to you the same way he lied to me," Zara said. "But the personal betrayal is the smaller problem right now. Look at this." She slid a multi-page bank document across the desk. "Do you recognize the name of the entity that holds the lease on this consultancy and the deed to the Haeundae apartment?" "Hongang Asset Partners," Minji whispered. "Junho's trust." "It's not a trust," Park Junho said from across the room. "It's a shell company used to hold stolen funds." Zara placed her finger on the signature line of the loan contract. "Junho forged my signature to take a 2 billion won secured loan against my commercial architectural firm. He used my life's work as collateral to buy this building and fund your business. That is federal bank fraud, wire fraud, and criminal forgery. And because your name is on the lease and the residential deed, the financial prosecutors will look at you as a potential co-conspirator." Every trace of color left Minji's face. She sat down heavily on the edge of the desk, pressing her hands to her eyes. A raw, ragged sound came out of her that had nothing performative about it. "I didn't know," she said. Her voice was breaking. "I swear to you I didn't know. He told me it was his own money. He told me he was protecting it from you in the divorce. I have 2 children. Please don't let them take my children." Zara looked at her for a long moment. A part of her had expected to feel satisfaction at this woman's distress. Instead she felt only a cold, tired pity. Yu Minji was not the architect of this. She was another structure Junho had built on a fraudulent foundation and was prepared to let collapse. I don't want your children, Zara said quietly. I want my life back. And I want the man who tried to steal it from me to lose everything he chose over me. She closed the portfolio. Junho is coming to Busan tonight for his weekend visit. Zara looked at her steadily. You are going to take your children to your family. Tonight. Because by midnight, prosecutors will be seizing this property as evidence in a federal fraud investigation. Minji looked up. And Junho? Zara's expression didn't change. He's mine. At 9:15 that evening, Junho's car turned into the Houndy apartment complex. He exhaled as he cut the engine. The week had been a masterwork of survival. Zara neutralized. His position at the firm protected. The hearing won. And now, finally, the first real night of rest he had allowed himself in weeks. He was home. He unlocked the apartment entrance and stepped inside. Minji. He called out. Silence. He walked through the foyer into the living room. The toys that usually covered the floor were gone. The fire was unlit. The children's shoes were missing from the hallway. In an armchair at the far end of the room, lit by a single floor lamp, was Zara. Junho's heart slammed to a stop. Omi. His voice came out wrong. What are you doing here? How did you find this? I'm an architect, Junho, Zara said. I know how to read blueprints. And I know how to find a weak foundation. His lawyer's instinct seized control. His panic converted to cornered aggression. You are violating the court's order. You broke into my property. I'm calling the police right now and having you committed tonight. This isn't your property, Zara said. Her voice perfectly even in the empty room. It belongs to the bank. Specifically, the bank you defrauded when you forged my signature on a 2 billion won secured loan against my architectural firm. The phone slipped from Junho's hand and hit the floor. The blood drained from his face. His legs went unsteady. He opened his mouth and nothing came out. For the first time in his professional life, the man who had built a career on constructing compelling narratives could not locate a single word. Minji is gone, Zara continued. She took the children to her family. She is cooperating fully with the prosecution in exchange for immunity. Junho's knees buckled. He caught himself against the wall. Zara. He raised his hands, his entire facade dissolving. Please. Can fix this. I will give you everything. The Songdong apartment, the portfolios, all of it. I will drop the custody petition tonight. Please. I will lose my license. I will go to prison. Please. I know, Zara said simply. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, red and blue lights began to strobe across the Houndy waterfront, throwing alternating colors across Junho's face. The heavy sound of car doors. Steps on the entrance ramp. You thought I was a woman you could simply walk away from, Zara said, standing. You forgot who built your life, Junho. And you forgot that the person who understands the architecture always knows exactly which wall to remove to bring the whole structure down. The front door was opened by federal agents who stepped through with practiced efficiency. Kang Junho, a prosecutor's officer, said, entering the living room with handcuffs in hand. You are under arrest for federal wire fraud, bank fraud, and criminal forgery. As they moved Junho toward the door, Zara walked past him. She did not look back. She stepped out into the cool Busan night, the lights painting the road ahead of her. Her phone buzzed. Eli just fell asleep. He's perfect. Are you all right? Zara got into the waiting car and typed back. I'm perfect. I'm coming home. Zara's story is a reminder that the deepest betrayals are the ones built slowly, by the people who were supposed to be our safest place. Junho thought he could use his legal brilliance and careful architecture to manage 2 women, hide a second family, and steal millions while performing the role of devoted husband. He gravely underestimated the quiet, precise strength of a woman protecting her child and the legacy she had built with her own hands. Zara didn't survive the storm he put her through. She became the architect of his complete ruin, proving that while deception may give you a temporary advantage, the truth will always find the load-bearing wall. If this story left you breathless, hit the like button. Share it with someone who loves a well-built ending. Subscribe to K-Afro Diary for more stories like this one. And let us know in the comments what would you have done in Zara's position.